got quiet. Hey, good morning, everyone. We're gonna use the microphones today. You can probably hear us without the microphones, but we're also going to video record this time together, and so it works better with microphones. I really do appreciate you guys being here. I didn't know if we had 3 people or 53. You never know. You want to sort of put it out there, but I love that you guys are here with us. Thank you so much. I'm going to take just a moment and just kind of share why we're here today. I'm going to let those on our panel introduce themselves very quickly to you. We have a parent who's been a parent for a lot of years and has been a board member, staff member, and then we have 4 graduates from Caldwell, and they'll introduce themselves. I'm going to let them just share kind of briefly just sort of 1 or 2 things as they think back on their time at Caldwell, just a couple things that are on their heart, and then I very quickly want to turn it over to you and let you begin just to ask questions of the panel as a whole or anyone in particular, and just give you lots of time for questions. If there are not a lot of questions initially, I can certainly throw things out and they could probably talk all day. But I want to make sure that you guys ask questions. So that's kind of the format. It'll be very casual. Mr. Cox is with us as well. I think towards the end of our time together, he's going to speak a little bit about the Guilford Says Yes program. But if you have questions, even just during this time, feel free to ask them as well. So I really do appreciate you being here. When Caldwell opened 21 years ago, the board made the commitment before the doors opened that they wanted to be a K-12 school. And that commitment was made early on. And I love that because as you watch the development of Christian schools and private schools, the high school is always the toughest piece. It's the most expensive piece. When you're competing with well-known big high schools that offer lots of programs, and Wesleyan that's been around for 30 plus years, will a high school really make it? And I was just very blessed to be able to come on staff a long time ago, back in '99, when we had a 9th grade, and then we added the 10th grade, and 11th grade, and 12th grade. And Seth was a part of those really early years before we had graduates, and we weren't accredited, and no one had heard of Caldwell. And were any kids going to go to college? Holy smokes, is the Lord going to bless this? I just remember so many conversations. And I just really appreciate the commitment of that early board to seeing a high school develop. I love the fact that we're K-12. I think it's one of our greatest blessings and strengths. Not every family will choose to be here, obviously all 13 years, but a lot of families will. When the board made that decision, I think they really knew if we want to do classical and do it well, it really is fitting together pieces of a puzzle. It really is. And all of that kind of culminates through those 13 years. It's not that the grammar school is more important than the high school or the high school is more important than the grammar. It's not. They're just different pieces of the puzzle that fit together beautifully over those years. As you all know, almost everything in life takes time. It takes time. My wife and I have been married a long time, 26, 27 years. I think our marriage is just better and stronger because we've had these years together. And education is the same. Education is lifelong. I think our board realized that. As you know, the goal of Caldwell Academy is to partner with you in the development of your children by offering classical and Christian education. And that just takes time. And how do you measure success? That's a great question. Do you measure success by how many kids have been to Chapel Hill since we opened our doors? Do you measure success by SAT scores, by GPA, by how many state championships you have in a sport? Those things are important. That's all a part of what a school does. I'm not saying they're not important. Those things are important. That's not how we want to measure success. We believe that education is part of the development of a person. And so we're trying to graduate certain types of people. Kids that love the Lord, kids that love education, that love learning, kids that are humble, kids that can articulate, can think deeply, can make connections, can discern truth and error, that are not easily swayed by the philosophies of the day. Ultimately, kids that love what God loves. Now that sounds great to say. How do you do it? I don't really know. But to that end, right, Sam? To that end, we kind of labor every day. And ultimately, that's the goal. And so when I want to get in front of parents to say, hey, would you consider thinking about a 13-year education? The best people to have in front of you are kids and parents that have walked this road. We can show you test scores, we can show you college admissions, we can show you scholarship data. That's all important. I'm not diminishing that. That's important. But more importantly are the people that have finished the education here that are out serving in the kingdom of the Lord. And so that's the goal for today. I'll pray and shut up and let them introduce themselves. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for life. Thank you for health. Thank you for this place. And I very sincerely say thank you for building this school over the past 21 years. I really believe that you have your hand upon it. And I'm humbled to be a part of it. I'm humbled to be able to have my children be a part of it. Lord, I thank you for the good days here. I thank you for the hard days. I thank you for the successes, and I thank you for the failures, because they have all helped to grow us to be where we are today. Lord, I'm so thankful that these families have taken time out of a busy, busy schedule to come be with us today. I pray that this hour or so will be fruitful to them. I pray you give them just a lot of wisdom as they think about their own family, their own finances, their own goals for their children. I pray you give them a lot of wisdom, Lord, as they consider Caldwell as one of those options for their education. Lord, you know how much I care about the people behind me. Thank you for Jane and John and their kids and the Perez family and all that they've meant to me. For Seth Anderson, who I guess I've known for a lot of years now, and just the joy of walking those early years with Seth. Lord, who else is behind me? Thank you for Ethan, my only son, who jumped in last minute to be here. Just the joy of being his dad. For Margot, recent college graduate, of course, for Brianna, and just the sweet spirit that she has, and the joy that it was for me to be able to teach her and know her family and know Brianna for all these years. I pray you continue to walk with them closer and drawing them to you each day. We pray in Christ's name. Amen. All right, now I'm going to start with Jane. Just introduce yourself a little bit. Thank you. Yeah, use the mic. I think that's going to be better.
Hi, I'm Jane Perez. I have my husband John and I have 4 children, 4 boys. We have 3 Caldwell graduates, and our youngest is in senior this year. They have been at Caldwell all the way through. Well, our oldest came, we've been at Caldwell for 20 years. And when we moved here, he came in 2nd grade, so, and the others have been all the way through. We have said many, many times that Caldwell is the best investment we ever made, because it's an investment in our children. We're not a wealthy family. We have to figure out how we're going to send our kids to Caldwell every year. But we have never, ever had 1 ounce of regret about the investment we have made in our children. Last night we had, I have 2 children that are married, but anyway, 3 of my 4 children we were all eating dinner together and brought up the subject of what we would be doing here today. And for the next hour, our kids did nothing but talk about the benefits of being at Caldwell and the benefits of their Caldwell education. So it was a great conversation. It was almost like a commercial. I wish you could have all been there. But it was very encouraging, and also just helped my husband and I to just reaffirm something that we've never really questioned, but just reaffirm the decision we made to have our children here as part of this Caldwell community. So, and I also teach 2nd grade here. This is my first year teaching 2nd grade. I've been a TA. I've been on the board for 10 years, been a parent. So I've kind of seen Caldwell inside out, upside down, every which way you can see Caldwell. All right.
Good morning. My name is Brianna Bauckley. I started at Caldwell when I was in 1st grade, and I graduated in 2013. I'm currently a junior at the University of North Carolina. I'm studying Spanish and management. Should I talk now a little about what Caldwell's meant to me? Or?
I think that'd be great.
Okay. So, like I said, I can talk for a long time about all the things I enjoyed at Caldwell and how it's prepared me. But obviously, I think most importantly, spiritually, I think now going to a public university, I especially appreciate that. And it's not like I'm explicitly attacked for Christianity at my school or anything, but even inside the classroom and outside the classroom, there's just a worldview that is completely different than what I was raised with and what Caldwell promotes. And so I think having that foundation has been really important to me, and I've been able to discern when things are different, and then I learned to articulate my beliefs and speak the truth in love and not hate or necessarily to argue with people, but to have intelligent conversations and to share what I believe and how it might differ.
Good morning, I'm Margot Diaz. I graduated last year and I came to Caldwell when I was a sophomore. There's a lot I can say about Caldwell. One of the number one things that I really like about Caldwell is its uniqueness. And I say that very genuinely because I think there's something special in this school, and it's something that you just don't see, especially in this age. Like this period it's very unique, and I enjoyed every time I had at this school, and I currently this summer helped enroll my brother into this school, and he's a freshman this year, and he's loving it.
My name is Ethan Greer. I graduated in 2011, and I was here from first grade on. I'm currently a fifth-year senior at Auburn, so almost done, graduated in May. I'm studying mechanical engineering. I love Caldwell. I was definitely a part of the Caldwell family, and you kind of realize that's what it is. And I know this will get talked about a lot today, but Caldwell prepared me for a lot of things, even things I didn't know I would need as an engineer, like communicating and speaking in front of people. I didn't realize that I would need that in a technical major, I guess, which sounds kind of silly, but I realized kind of as I got into my major that that's really important, and it's something I feel very comfortable with, and I'm really glad that Caldwell helped prepare me for that, because that's not something that you can learn just in 1 or 2 classes at school, but something you kind of develop through a lot of speeches and debate and everything at Caldwell that you get to do. So that's one very specific way I'm very thankful for Caldwell. Also, like Rita said, just learn how to think and form your own opinion on things, and to be able to entertain people's opinions that you disagree with, and be able to make your own decisions, even as coming in as a freshman to college and being told things by professors that you've never heard and things you think you disagree with. But it's hard to see people who are so smart who disagree with you. But learning how to deal with that, kind of process that, and come up with your own opinions, is something I'm really thankful for too. So.
My name is Seth Anderson, and I graduated from Caldwell in 2003. And so I had a little bit of the experience of when I started the same year that Mr. Greer did in 1999, which I will say, whatever Mr. Greer does, if you looked at him in 1999 and looked at him today, it's very strange for me to be back here with hair, because he looks absolutely no different than in 1999. So whatever's going on there, it's happening very well. When I started at Caldwell, I was not the top grade. There was a grade ahead of me, but I started in 8th grade, and there was that 9th grade class, and Caldwell would be adding a grade every year. And so there was a lot of, what are we going to do? How are we going to try things? How are we going to build a high school academic program that will enable our graduates to go on to perform, not just well in college, but in their careers? And so I think that experimentation for those first couple of grades really gave them an adaptable mindset of willing to accept the different change going around them, which is really, that's a tough life skill to learn when you're between the ages of 14 and 18, but that really helps you when you get out on your own. What I observe for Caldwell now is they've started to figure some things out and to move into some routines, but it's still a mindset of we're still looking to retain our classical model, but see how we can build upon that based on how our world, how our culture is changing. Particularly, if you think about, I graduated from college in 2007, right before the recession hit, and was very fortunate to have a job and to be employed and to maintain that through the recessionary period. But there were many changes in my workplace and environment that I think that sort of you're looking at, and I don't want to say rolling with it, but you have this mindset to look at and absorb what's the good in this, where are the redemptive qualities, where's the opportunity to take positive action, and to understand, really process that information of how you can make a difference in that situation. It's been very, very good. So my youngest is 6 months old, my oldest is 6, so I have 3 kids now. The oldest started kindergarten here this past year. A lot of folks that I knew when I was a student here have asked, what's it like to be back at Caldwell? And my answer is, of course, much easier as a parent than a student. So that's something where I'm sure it will continue to get harder. Kindergarten seems like a lot of fun. Today, my senior year here was pretty challenging. It's been very, very good.
We, Caldwell, as you may know, we actually graduated one student as our very first graduate. Seth married her.
That's right. So I had to get, the best of the best. So, yeah, I think, in that being small and sort of coming up together as you looked at the changes in the school environment, and Caldwell was really solidifying what it meant to be a family as a group of people. And that family has grown and gotten bigger, certainly since I transitioned. But I look at my brother's class and even on down the line, and that culture and that spirit has maintained and persevered. And there's a lot of intentional things that the school does to help foster that and to maintain that throughout the years.
Margot, if you don't mind, just before I open up to parents, if it's okay, Margot mentioned that he came in as a sophomore. We don't admit a lot of students into high school. We do each year admit some. And it can be a more difficult transition the older you get. Margot came in from a school in Ashboro. He chose, I don't think you mind me saying, he chose to reclass as a sophomore. Academically, Caldwell was a real push for Margot. And I don't know if I've ever seen a student transition over time and grow more, I think, than Margot. Would you mind speaking to that just a little bit, Margot? What it was like to transition to a very different school, maybe some of those challenges, and looking back, why you're glad you made that choice?
Yes, I did make the decision to have an extra year, and at first it was with the intention of playing soccer an extra year, to be honest. And quite frankly, when I was coming in, I didn't know much about the school, and I came in from a larger public school, and at my previous public school, I wasn't really pushed academically. So when I came into Caldwell, it was a huge struggle. Very, very, very difficult for me. And I actually finished the year with, I think, a 1.9. And at that time, I really didn't think I was never thinking about college. I was just thinking about soccer, and that was going to be my goal, and I was going to get to school with that. But I really, really learned quickly that it's not only about sports. And Caldwell, the transition academically was difficult, but looking back at it, I think if I had to make the decision again to be a sophomore or go on to junior year, I would pick sophomore year anytime, because it really prepared me, and it was kind of a reality check. And teachers were not just there to give me grades so I could play my sport. They were not there. They were there to push me, and to me that was very difficult because I was used to just getting the grade and going out and playing. But I learned quickly that's not all about that, so that was good. But one of the things that really pushed me at Caldwell was probably my spirituality. As soon as I came in, I was not a believer at this time, and I wasn't a believer for most of my life. I didn't grow up in a church, but when I came to Caldwell, I just kind of felt the presence of something bigger. And what I take away from this school is kind of that it reaffirmed, and I truly met God through this school. And it didn't take but 2 weeks before I noticed that it was very different. That's why I say there's uniqueness in the school. And some people, like Mr. Greer said, you can, how do you measure success? Well, I measure it by how I ended up after these 3 years. Spiritually, I came out and I was strong. As a person, I grew. Junior year and senior year, I did turn it around with my grades. I did. And I made it to college. I'm very thankful for that. But that's how I measure success. And that's something that Caldwell offered to me that I don't think any other school would have offered. And for that, I'm very grateful. It's just something very unique about this school, and it didn't take long before I noticed it. And I came to the Lord within like a month or so. I try to hold back, but when you're around people like this,
Thank you for being honest. I just kind of want to open it up to see if you all want to ask questions of Anyone in particular or the panel as a whole? I can certainly throw out more questions, but I want to give you opportunities as well.
Margot, what college are you in?
I'm sorry. Hey, for the second video, I'm supposed to repeat the question.
Oh,
Into the mic.
What college? I would like
Are
to
you?
know Margot and Seth.
What college Margot and Seth should attend?
I attend Montreat College.
And then went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
How did you find your first year of college based on your last year in Caldwell? Was it equal, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, where? Because some people said they come out of Caldwell, gone into the first year of college, and it's like doing your senior year again.
How do you compare your first year of college to your last year at Caldwell?
You mean academically,
Yeah.
specifically?
Yeah.
It kind of, for me, it kind of depended on the classes. Some classes I had to take, because I moved my junior year, I missed the AP late exam, so I had to take Comp 1 and Comp 2. And those classes, the 2 or 3 minute speeches we had to give, some of those classes were very easy for me. But I had to take engineering physics, and that was really a challenge. So that was the hardest class I'd ever taken in my life. So it just, for me, it's better on the subject. And that class really challenged me to learn how to study better and kind of figure out how I learned. Getting into that and starting to get towards my major a little bit was really difficult for me. And that was my second semester at Auburn.
I think the most important thing to remember is, and I guess it depends on where you go, but college is it's just hard. And you don't want to do that for 4 years of high school and then do it again for 4 years of college. And so I think after my first semester, I was just like, oh, this sucks, this is terrible, this is hard, I was not prepared at all, I don't know anything, this was a big mistake, all this stuff. But really realizing, okay, in high school, I developed a set of tools. And I'm in a new environment with new things that I'm learning, which intrinsically are not the things that I'm learning in high school. I mean, what's the point of going to college if you did it all in high school? So that sort of realization of, okay, I have a set of tools. I've been taught how to study. I've been taught how to think. I've been taught how to recognize, absorb, and process large amounts of information. And that was sort of any new place, whether you're moving across the country or starting a new job or going to a new church or any of those things, there's that period where you start to learn and absorb the environment that you're in, the things that you need to turn around as a result of that. And so, I don't know, I think so much of it depends on the individual and the individual student, but recognizing that you're leaving here with tools that equip you to have success in that environment is a very, very healthy perspective, more so than because of Caldwell, college is easy. I wish it was that way.
Yeah, so UNC has a lot, it's a liberal arts school, so there's a lot of general education requirements, and a lot of those I found to be similar to things I learned at Caldwell, similar topics that I've been really prepared for. Like at UNC, you used to be able to play some of the basic English, depending on your scores and such, but they found that so many students were unprepared to write at college level that they require now an English class that everyone has to take. And so I couldn't place out of that and took that. It was, what is a thesis statement? What is this? And it was many things I'd already learned before. So I felt very prepared in that aspect. And like I said, it really depends on the class, whereas my first few even semesters were very basic things. Now I'm getting more in major classes, so it is different. And I think the biggest difference is just like timing. So in high school, no matter where you go, you're in class most of the day. And so a lot of work is done there, whereas in college, a lot of it's up to you. It requires a lot more, like you said, intrinsic motivation. And so it is, I think, based on the individual. You have to motivate yourself. You have to learn how to study in a different way because you're setting up your own schedule. But I think at Caldwell, like, I remember Miss K would always say, I'm not going to baby you because they don't do that in college. Like, you have to, even here I learned that it's up to you, like your education is your own, you have to own it at a point. And I think Caldwell prepared me to put that into practice in college.
the question is, how would you describe the spiritual and relational, the mentorship in the Rhetoric School? And how has that influenced you?
Well, mine came through being on the soccer team. It was really a brotherhood to be on the team for 3 seasons. I've never been so close with guys, even in college. I don't think I can compare it to my seasons with Caldwell. The staff, we had Coach Guthrie for 3 years, and he was a great man and leader. But not just him, we had assistant coaches too that were great mentors, and over the years, different captains that went through the team that were great mentors for me. I think you can see it too in the Rhetoric a lot. We have one of the things that really shocked me coming into Caldwell was like how much nicer people were, but also how the upperclassmen treated the underclassmen. And in public school, you don't see that a lot. On the contrary, you see a lot of the opposite, kind of the upperclassmen picking on the underclassmen. So to me, that was kind of weird, but you really don't see a problem between that. And sometimes I really saw no conflict with anybody. I never had a problem with anybody from any class, and I knew like I could get the same respect from when I was an underclassman. I could get the same respect from an upperclassman or from another underclassman. So to me, that was really great.
We last night when we were having dinner, I was talking with my children. They had a lot of ideas about how spiritually, what had meant to them specifically in high school. And one of them, one of the very first things they said was, it's the whole, the training, the children, that students get here to respect their elders, to appreciate people around them, the younger, the older. They have a lot of traditions at Caldwell that have really molded my children. Veterans Day, Grandparents' Day, the Caldwell Singers singing at Wellspring. In fact, recently we had some Caldwell singers that are in their 4th year. They sang together at Caldwell. They're in their 4th year at Appalachian, several of them. And they have missed singing in nursing homes so much that they went together as a group to go sing this Christmas in Boone. Also had incidents where my children have missed Veterans Day so much that a group got together and watched it in college on their laptops at the same time to watch the Veterans Day broadcast. They have learned so many things beyond what they have learned in the classroom. It's amazing. And I remember one time I was filling in at the office and a young man came in that had graduated and was in the military. And he came in and he was waiting to speak to Mark Guthrie, and he was waiting to death. I don't know where Mark was, but anyway, we were just chatting. And he finally said, I can't wait on Mark, Mr. Guthrie, but maybe I could just talk to somebody. I just want to say to somebody that now that I'm in the military, he said, my life was difficult. My home life was hard when he was in high school here. He didn't get the training that perhaps would have made him more well-suited to learn to respect elders in the military. But he said, the reason I'm a success where I am now is because I was at Caldwell. He said, I could see immediately a difference in me than in others when it came to respecting those authority and those around me. But it's not something you have to do here. It's something you are trained to do. It's something that's appealing to the students here, so they can look at adult eye and speak. They can articulate well. They have respect for elders. They're trained to do that here. We've always said that what Caldwell does is very much an extension of our home life. So we don't spend time at home undoing what they've learned at school. What they learn here at school complements what we teach them at home, and we have loved that. Kindergarten through 12th grade, we have seen that very much.
How
So how well were you prepared in college, math, in the area of mathematics? How well you were prepared?
Sure. That's a great question. Caldwell, so I got to Auburn, and I had friends. I had one friend that had already taken the 3 calculus classes in linear algebra in high school. So he was 3 or 4 classes ahead of me. And so that was intimidating for me at first, but thinking back on it, after 18 months in college, that really didn't matter. Because I was taught those things at Auburn. I was taught them the way that Auburn wanted, Auburn wanted me to learn them. I'm a math person. I like math a lot, and it comes easily to me usually. So I took AP Stats and AP Calc my junior year and senior year of high school, and really enjoyed them, especially calculus. I don't really use statistics, but I use calc in what I'm doing. And it was a challenging class. Stats was probably the hardest class I took at Caldwell. I really had to work very hard in stats. I remember being frustrated with it and not understanding it. So it's definitely challenging. I don't know exactly what Caldwell's reputation is on math, but it's definitely challenging. Especially those last 2 kind of capstone math classes will really challenge kids. And I was able to take those and to do a good job. I was able to tutor some math while I was here. So I definitely felt prepared going into Auburn. And I think, for me, at least math and physics kind of work closely, and really thankful for Mr. Feeney's physics class, which is very different from other high schools, the way they do physics. But I still use the things I learned because it teaches concepts mostly, and it teaches you how to think about physics concepts in general. And so getting to Auburn, I realized I didn't know, maybe some of the equations that my friends did, but it's much more important to understand the concepts. And even now, in my later classes, taking a heat transfer class and remembering something Mr. Feeney told me about how heat moves. And I don't need an equation I learned from high school. I need the concept that Mr. Feeney taught me. And so I still use things like that. And so Caldwell is different from public schools in that way, but I really appreciate it. I didn't realize that my freshman year at Auburn, but now that I'm almost done, it's something I think is really valuable.
Say something to that. I don't know if you know guys, but I went to, when Aiden was in 8th grade, in the 8th grade, they had Caldwell conversations with the students from our school. And when I went home, I said to Ned, it was the best talk I've ever been to at Caldwell, because we were trying to decide if Aiden should come here to high school. We always thought she would, but we didn't have there weren't as many math and science opportunities. And I can't remember her name, but she ended up going to Eastern. I think she was a junior.
Madeline Harris, probably.
Yeah.
Probably Madeline.
Somebody asked that question, and Mr. Guthrie said, we don't have to figure out who's going to answer that question as to, we don't have as many AP, we don't feel like. And she said when she was going to 9th, I think she was in her junior year, when she was going to 9th grade, or where Haven was, her parents and she had the exact same question. And she said, we sat down and wrote all the pros and all the cons of Caldwell Public School. We ended up deciding I was going to come to Caldwell. And she said, I didn't realize at the time, but she said, I'm so glad I did, specifically because Caldwell has taught me how to write and to think. And if I had gone to the public school, I promise you, I would have taken every science and math class that I could have. I would have avoided all the English, writing, everything. And I realize now that I can concentrate on in college. But if I don't learn this now, in college, I'm not going to be learning that. And I need it, even if I'm a scientist, for writing lab reports and all that. And that, for me, was so amazing to hear that she said, I here at Caldwell have to focus on a lot of things, but that I never would have focused on other schools that have. So I'm sorry to take time, but that was amazing to me.
I would definitely agree with that. It was good for me to be made to study poetry and study history and stuff, things that I wouldn't choose to study normally, and kind of help, I guess round me off almost. And so, when you get to college and you study a technical major, they're going to teach you everything you need to know. you know, I had to take 2 or 3 extra classes that my friend had brought in hours, but it really didn't matter. And then it was fresh on my mind. You know, I took it in the fall, so then in the spring for the next class, I was ready for it. He hadn't had it in 18 months. So, you know, there are even some benefits. And so, you know, now it just, it doesn't matter to me that I didn't have Calc 2 and 3 in high school and stuff like that. And like you said, being able to write lab reports and communicate and speak to my professors on a professional level, and do my internships and be professional and address people and have meetings and things like that. I think Caldwell did more to prepare me for that than Auburn did in some ways. So.
And she did say that. She said my friends that are in public schools and they're like me and only do science and math, they can't really speak to other people. And at Caldwell, I've learned to speak and public speak.
You learned math in school, but now you're studying Spanish. You kind of go back and say, had you better, would you rather study Spanish at an earlier age, or how did Latin transfer into Spanish? Just talk about all that language stuff.
So if you would just speak to Caldwell's Latin curriculum, that you took Latin from an early age instead of Spanish at an early age.
Yeah, so I have a lot of friends who are just starting learning language for the first time in high school or in college, and I think obviously Latin and Spanish are a lot different, but the whole concept of language as a whole, knowing the concepts of grammar and tenses and conjugations, those are all things that made transitioning to Spanish so much easier. I think if you just start with language, I have a lot of friends who try to do that, and if you just don't know the basic constructs of language, that makes a lot different. And it was here where I first really learned to love language, and I took a linguistics class this past semester, and I just have such a passion for it and for Spanish, and obviously I kind of wish I could have taken Spanish earlier. I think it could help me be more fluent, and I'd love to raise my kids that way. But I think Latin also provides not only the foundation for any language, but also for the English language, and say root words. I think just part of the classical mindset, like going to Italy and seeing Latin words there, or I think it was important for getting the classical learning and to be able to learn a language after that. It made it a much easier transition.
Yes. In the interest of being a lifelong learner and as a parent of a Rhetoric student, I wondered if you have any advice you might offer to parents without getting your parents in trouble maybe, but things that they did well and things that maybe weren't as helpful. Looking back now at this stage in your life that might help us if we're in the middle of there.
Amen.
I don't know how to repeat that. That would be advice to parents from students on how to prepare, how your parents did things well to prepare you for the world. Or not.
I think kind of like what Mrs. Perez was saying is that I think if your parents, at least my parents, wanted to raise me based on the Bible and what God desires, and so of course they wanted to send me to a place where I spent the majority of my day where that same worldview is being taught, and so like she said, you don't want to send them to a place where when they come home you have to undo almost what they're learning. It's instead like coming alongside them, so I really appreciated that, and my parents were always there for me to ask me what I'm learning and to point me back to God's Word, and so I really appreciate that aspect of it. And they're also there for me in terms of helping my homework and just when I have questions, but at the same time they definitely didn't baby me or say that let me do this for you. They made me figure it out on my own. I think just the advice they gave me, so I would just say being there, not pushing them or helicoptering, I think it's like a popular term, but just being available, I think is the biggest thing. So when you do want to talk to someone, I think my parents always said, if you need anything, we're here. They always like made sure that we knew if we had a problem, they were there to talk to them. And I do have friends who their parents were just too busy to even share lives with them, and they don't have necessarily positive relationships with their parents anymore. And my parents are some of my best friends, so I'm able to talk to them about anything from school to personal relationships. And so I just say being available.
I think, I don't see my mother in here. But I think that, no, she's on the board, so. This is something that, being a parent now myself, and granted it's only in kindergarten, so it's only been one semester, so we'll see how it goes. It's going very well. But I think it hasn't been until recently realizing my own parents' commitment to the classical methodology, and that sort of, there was never any questioning on, this is what we're going to do. And so it wasn't just that myself being a student here, to be successful, there was a requirement that I understand and buy into and respond to and seek to perform well in a classical system. But there's also that commitment from my parents on, we actually believe this is a good thing too. And it's not something that they were like, well, if it doesn't work out, we'll try something else, or evaluating on a very repetitive basis on, is this a good thing or not? But it was, we have done this, we've made the commitment to seeing it through, and it's a process. There's not anything that's going to happen in a single year or a single semester that's going to do it for your kid.
Yeah.
There was nothing that did that for me. And it was something that built over time. If any of you read Malcolm Gladwell's blanking on the name of the book or some Outliers, where he talks about the traits of highly successful people, and something that's repeated in the concept throughout the book is that to be really, really good at something, to be an expert, to be that outlier, it requires about 10,000 hours of repetitive work. And that's something where we look at our athletes, people who are very smart in business, those kinds of things, where 10,000 hours of constantly doing stuff, about 5 years, if you break that down into a 6-hour classroom day, 180 days a year, that's basically 10 years. So it's something where that repetitive, that consistency, that being with it throughout the classical methodology creates something that I think we've all heard from the panel on folks being well-rounded and that sort of, didn't focus solely on the arts or didn't focus solely on the math type of thing. Those are the things that when I was in high school, I graduated in 2003. That seems like a really long time ago. There's been a lot of things that have happened since then where when I was asked to be on this panel and what the questions were, it's like, okay, I remember very specific things about Caldwell, I remember things that were good, things that were really hard, but my perspective is very different than when I was very close to it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something where I've had several different jobs. I have 3 kids now, I've been married for over 8 years, and those things that I value now, I would say are very different than what I valued 8 years ago or 6 years ago. And so it's something where, we go back to the parents' commitment and that type of thing of that consistency. There was never any doubt or questioning that, I'm sure that they did. Is this going to work or not? I don't know. Is Seth going to handle this or not? But there was that support there and that consistent belief that, okay, this is where you are, and let's figure out how to be successful in that.
So Seth, with that same concept, you being here, why would you put your kid through it now?
No, it seems like
So
it's
the question is, why do you want your child here now?
I would say that aside from the benefits of the classical methodology or even the curriculum, Caldwell does a very good job with the administration and teachers of attracting people that are passionate. And in any field or industry that I have been in or interfaced with, when you are dealing with someone who's very passionate about what they're doing, that excellence is driven, it's led upon. The students are led to be excellent. It's not something that's forced upon them or something that is, there's a punishment associated with it, therefore you will perform. But it's been, I think, we were very attracted to how Caldwell has maintained this very encouraging environment. And that's something where we see if school in any way could be a positive thing and something that's looked forward to, and that there's delight in that, then yeah, that's where I want my kid to go. And so it certainly, we made obvious financial sacrifices to do it. It's not like, we're still paying student loan bills at this point. So, but I think that it's something where, crap, raising kids is like hard. Like it's not something where, we realize, okay, we did this, we have them now, we gotta do something about it. And to see that we feel safe and comfortable, that we can trust that this is going to be a good thing. So.
I like that he's speaking from a parent perspective and a student perspective. I love that. And I just wanted to speak from a parent perspective as well, that I have watched children, I've watched groups over the years, when they hit the end of 8th grade, they want to go to a different high school. And what I've seen many times is that it's a child-driven decision. Granted, none of my children ever begged to leave Caldwell. They actually really loved it here. So I don't know what it feels like to have a child that may be begging to go to a bigger school, or specifically maybe a public school. But John and I never felt as if a child at the age of 14 was mature enough to make that decision for themselves. So if they had been begging, we would not have allowed our child to make that decision, because we could see the big picture and we knew there was something way more important ahead for them. And we know that the Lord, as Christians, He has called us to teach our children to love what God loves and hate what God hates. So we would not choose to put our children in an environment, no matter how many AP classes they could take, where they would be surrounded all day by many people who are doing exactly the opposite of loving what God loves and hating what God hates. We know there's a lot of Christian groups in the public schools, and we've seen many children go successfully through the public schools. But honestly, my husband and I said we would not want to be sitting in a public school all day, 6 hours a day, being exposed to many of the things that our children would be exposed to. We have 4 boys. Boys have hormones. They struggle. And we want our children in a place where they don't have to have extra temptations in front of them all day long. We don't want that for them. We would not want that for ourselves. So part of what the reason that our children were at Caldwell was not to shield them, but just to protect them in the same way that God would ask us to protect our own selves. The Lord says, do not praise to His Heavenly Father, do not lead me into temptation. So we don't want to send our children to a place where they're going to be tempted all day long. No amount of AP classes will ever be more important than the spiritual atmosphere that they had here at Caldwell. So I'm just encouraging you, if you do have a child who is begging to leave or interested in something bigger that they see or better out there, all this gold does not glitter. And you're the parent, and please just guide them in this direction, because they cannot see this for themselves. Even if you just encourage them another year at Caldwell, we've seen many, many times a child stay 1 more year and find, wait a minute, high school at Caldwell is really fun. I bond with my classmates. It's different now.
And I think it's been very informational, great conversation here. Thank you for your questions. I'm not going to keep you very long. It's just going to be a brief overview of, many of you may have heard some buzz about the Guilford Says Yes, nationally known as the Say Yes to Education. And let me highlight a little bit of that. This has its roots in a gentleman from the 1980s named George Weiss out of New York City. You may have read about this over the years. A very wealthy man who began a nonprofit organization after he was in 1987. he promised 112 sixth graders in the inner city of Philadelphia, inner city public school, that if they would persevere and graduate from high school, he would pay for their college. And he continued this for a number of years with other students and spent probably billions of dollars out of his own pocket to pay for these inner city, poverty-stricken students in Philadelphia, and ultimately formed a nonprofit organization. And this was in the mid-2000s, and it became known as the Say Yes to Education. And there are now several communities nationally. Greensboro is one of them. There are not many nationally. Greensboro is very privileged to be one of the communities across the nation that has the Say Yes to Education, and that we're calling locally Say Yes to Guilford. There are three primary goals of the Say Yes to Education. First, it helps communities build local endowments that provide last dollar tuition, and I'll come back to that, the last dollar tuition scholarships for public school graduates to go to college or university. Second goal, Say Yes works with the community to build student supports that help students, primarily poverty-stricken students that might not have the advantages that many of our students in a private school might have, or a different socioeconomic class perhaps. This includes legal assistance, some summer programs, health services, after-school programs. And then the third goal of Say Yes works with school leadership in these public institutions to ensure students are on the path to academic success and some accountability set up. And so in September of this past year, it was officially approved in Guilford County, and this takes place beginning with this year's graduating class of 2016. There is the goal locally to have a $70 million endowment. Right now, they have raised, it's approaching $40 million, and so they decided to pull the trigger. They're still raising money to get to the $70 million, but decided to pull the trigger at the $40 million mark and implement this with the class of 2016. Eligible students are Guilford County public school graduates, not private school, not charter school, not homeschool, but public school graduates. And you must have continuous enrollment in a Guilford County public school to be eligible for the last dollar in for tuition. If you go grades 6 through 12 and continuously enrolled in a Guilford County public school, you get 100% eligibility. If you are enrolled for 4 years of high school, grades 9 through 12, you're eligible for 75%, 10 through 12, 50%, 11th and 12th grades, it's 25%, and if you're only enrolled your senior year in Guilford County Public School, you're not eligible for anything. What this means, and there's a lot of misinformation and misperceptions about this. The eligibility is for tuition only, not fees, not housing, not food, none of the supplemental expenses that sometimes cost more, maybe significantly more than the tuition. So it does not cover any fees, room, board, books. In addition to the public colleges and universities in the state of North Carolina, it's only for going in-state, public college, or there are 100 private institutions nationally that will accept this funding. 9 in the state of North Carolina: Wake Forest, Duke, Davidson, Salem College, Bennett College, Laurel University, High Point, Guilford, and Greensboro College. Those are the 9 private schools in North Carolina. Again, there are 100 nationally. and they break up the remuneration, the scholarship money a little bit by income level. If total family income is less than $75,000 a year, it equals full tuition scholarship, but again, tuition only. If family income, annual income, is greater than $75,000, for private schools, it pays up to $5,000 annually in tuition. And for public schools, it will pay, I believe it's up to $5,000 as well. The average tuition, extracting all the fees and other expenses, the average annual tuition at a North Carolina public school is $4,500 a year. So at the average public in-state tuition, it would cover that $4,500. There are some, University of North Carolina State, there's some of the public universities that are a little bit more expensive, but it is the last dollar in. So what that means is whatever merit scholarship that you receive, whatever need-based grant or scholarship you receive, that goes first, from whether it's federal, state, or from that institution, whatever money that they provide you, it's after that that the Guilford Says Yes scholarship goes into effect. And on their website, and you can go to the Guilford Says Yes website, I'll give you that address in a moment, but they give an example of a generic in-state school where their tuition is the average, $4,500 a year, and in this hypothetical case, the student receives $3,480 in federal, state, and institutional aid. So the remaining tuition is $1,020. So the Say Yes scholarship covers $1,020 a year. As an example, NC State University, tuition is $8,500 a year, so it's a little bit higher. But between books, food, housing, other fees, the total tuition and fees is about $23,000. So it's significantly more than just that tuition. The average cost of a private institution today, overall cost, tuition fees, room, board, is about $45,000 a year. But if you go to Duke or Davidson, or my alma mater, Wake Forest, you go to Georgetown or Notre Dame or Stanford or Harvard or Yale, you're paying about $65,000 a year, times 4, unless you're readers, times 5. It's a significant amount of money. This Say Yes to Education is a wonderful program. I applaud what they're doing. It's a great way to supplement and help many people afford a college education. Those who earn a family income of less than $75,000 a year, I would say typically will receive, over and beyond potential merit scholarship, if a student is well qualified academically or athletically or whatnot, over and beyond merit, you typically will receive a need-based award. If that family is making $30,000 or $50,000 or $60,000 a year, typically could go to Harvard for free, or Davidson for free, or Wake Forest for free, or at least tuition would be free because of income level. So the Guilford Says Yes, for those income level, it may help, but it may not help. For those whose total family income level is greater than $75,000, Then you have the limit of up to $5,000 for private tuition, and then 100% in-state tuition in a public school. But let me compare that to the investment that you make right now, paying tuition to us at Caldwell. I see that this is, to me, it's an investment on multiple levels. It's a financial investment that very likely will pay a financial dividend. But it's also an investment, in my mind, and maybe you've seen some of that in here these alumni, is the dividends are far more than financial. Every student in the history of Caldwell has been accepted to college. Some have chosen to go into the military or take a gap year, but every graduate has been accepted to college in our 21-year history. The last 3 years, 90% were accepted at their first choice. If we look at merit scholarship money given to our graduates, last year we had 44 seniors, and they received nearly $4.2 million in merit scholarship money cumulatively. That's not need-based. That's completely merit-based scholarship money. That's just under $100,000 per student. I would, you can't prove this. No one can prove this. Because you don't have a control study. You can't clone your child and have one go to Page High School or Northern and the other go here. But having been in private school education for 26 years, this is the 6th school in which I've worked, and I've worked with many students going off to college, and worked directly with many college admissions officers. I can all but guarantee that a student graduating from Caldwell will receive more merit scholarship money than they would at just about any public school, and really more than most private schools. There is a college prep school that's kind of over, I forget the name of the school, it's kind of Lawndale and Lake Grant, that area. And their tuition for high school is $21,750 a year. It's more than double our tuition. Their graduating class, there were 100 students, 100 graduates, and they received $4.5 million in merit scholarship money. We had 44 graduates, 44%, and received almost as much. So per capita, we were about double the merit scholarship money. To me, that makes our tuition look like a real bargain. So the Caldwell education, the investment that we make, pays likely, historically, certainly shows that it pays a very rich dividend on the other end. I will add, this year's senior class, and it's way early in terms of being awarded merit scholarship money. Most of that takes place in the spring, but already we are way ahead of last year's class, way ahead. So if it continues at that pace, we may have $5 million or more, who knows. So financially, there is a great chance that our graduates will receive merit scholarship money over and beyond any need-based that they may qualify for. This is a testimony to the reputation and the strength of Caldwell, our curriculum, our approach to education. Colleges love classical school graduates. They love them. I talk to college admissions folks and college professors around the country all the time. They salivate to have students like ours. And our students are quite competitive in terms of acceptance and scholarship money because of that. But our teachers, our curriculum, and our educational philosophy make our graduates quite competitive. The fact that we have people like Julie Gasmarian, If you have younger children, you may not know Julie. She is our Director of College Counseling. I've worked with 10 college counselors at 6 private schools, many of them highly touted, competitive academic institutions. Julie is the best college counselor I've ever worked with. And certainly most public schools don't have someone at her level. And she is one other reason why our students receive so much aid. But there's also a non-financial dividend from a Caldwell education. And I think maybe you got just a glimpse of that in your conversation with these folks that were behind me a few moments ago. What they take away from a K through 12 experience here, and even what they might take away from a grade 10 through 12 experience like Margot, it is irreplaceable. It is valuable in so many intangible ways in terms of spiritual development, confidence, learning how to think, learning how to communicate well, to create young people of wisdom and virtue and godly eloquence that they blow their peers away when they get off to college. Whether it's math or science or humanities or fine arts, just the maturity they have and the way that they know how to think. And you cannot put a price tag on that. And so I would say that the likelihood, certainly the possibility, that a child graduating, a young person graduating from Caldwell would receive far more in a merit scholarship money to a college university than they would get from the Say Yes to Guilford. There's a great chance of that. There is some of the misinformation that's out there on the street is, to Say Yes to Guilford, if my child just graduates from Guilford County School, they go to college for free. Well, not exactly. That better chance of going to college for free if they stay here. Of course, it does cost you now. I'm not going to ignore that fact. So you are paid, and you're paying a lot of money for your children to be here. We don't ignore that fact. It is a sacrifice for many people to send their children here. And I think, of course I'm a little biased, but I think it's a sacrifice that's worth it. That you can't put a price tag on what takes place in our classrooms, in our hallways, in athletic fields. If you've never been issued a personal invitation, I'll do it now. Come sit in on classes. See the great things that take place in those classes, whether it's a kindergarten class or a calculus class, whatever. And if you have a first grader, go sit in the Rhetoric school class. Go see what it's like. Maybe you were impressed with some of these alums, and Perez, who is the parent of several alums. But I think you'll be impressed with our Rhetoric students as well. If you go to one of your children's classes, you might give them a heads up in advance. And I've gone past my time limit, but are there any questions? I'm not an expert on this Say Yes to Guilford, but there are, where's the web address? I think Say Yes Guilford, written all as one word, .org. SayYesGuilford.org. And there are links for scholarships and the mechanics of the program. I've read through their website in great detail. I've had a number of conversations. Mr. Bishop, our business manager, whose office is about 12 inches away from mine. Last month, I drove to Savannah, Georgia, and back with his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law, people, why do we care? Mr. Bishop's brother-in-law is on the board of directors for the Say Yes to Guilford, or the committee, or whatever it's called. And so I had lots of questions, and so I picked his brain for several hours. So I did learn a lot from him, and he certainly is a resource. But if you have more specific questions, maybe I can answer, and if not, I'll direct you to people far smarter than me. Yes?
Yeah. I, again, don't want to monopolize, but I want to share something that happened this week at a family dinner. I said to Ned, there's this talk this week about Say Yes, and Haven, my daughter, who's a junior, spoke up, and she is in a small group with about 5 Caldwell girls and about 6 public school girls. And when the day the Say Yes was passed, one of the girls texted to everyone, I want to thank you for praying for me. The Say Yes passed, and I'm gonna have my college, she knew tuition, but I'm not gonna have to pay. And it was a huge, big deal. Well, financially, college is a big deal for us. And just the other day, she was saying to this girl, she was bummed because, we're having to look at schools with a financial perspective as well. And this girl was encouraging Haven and said to her, Haven, I'm at a big public school. I'm in the highest classes. I've got great grades. And when I'm with the Caldwell girls at our group, I promise you, you guys know so much more than me. You're so smart, and you know so much about the world. When you're talking, a lot of times I'm like, whoa. And she said, I'm 100% positive when you get to college that for the same amount of work, it's going to be so much easier for you. And my parents have said my grades in college determined me getting into grad school, and you're going to be able to get A's before when I might have to work really hard for a B. But I'm as smart intellectually as you are. I mean, she's at the top of her class, and she said, so Haven, don't get down, because long term you should be glad that what you're learning. I'm just blown away by the Caldwell kids in our small group and what they know. So I just couldn't believe an 11th grader had that. Not just when they get to college they're blown away, the other kids, but her 11th grade friend. So.
Yes, ma'am.
In a nutshell, if your family makes over $75,000 a year, you don't qualify.
No, you qualify.
You do qualify, okay.
But it is not a full tuition. It's for a private school, it's a max of $5,000 for tuition. For a public school, I believe it's still full tuition. But that full tuition is going to be anywhere from about $3,000 to $8,000, and that's the last dollar in. So it's after you get any financial aid, any merit scholarship money. So if the tuition is $5,000 and you get $3,000 in aid, then the scholarship is worth $2,000.
So what's the 75,000 household income mean? Anything?
For the private. It's
For
just for
private
out-of-state
schools.
private.
Okay.
And then those other two goals of the program, with providing legal assistance and lots of this, it provides more avenues that are paid for with that, I believe.
So if your household income is 100,000, you still get a portion of yes at the very end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions? Go to the website, get more. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Sam.
Have a great day.